Hello everyone. We are diving into the Scrum Master's Toolkit, specifically focusing on Scrum events, more than just a meeting. Imagine you are the conductor of a world-class orchestra preparing for a concert in Mumbai. You don't just walk onto the stage and start playing. You have rehearsals, rhythm checks, and sound tests. If you skip these, the performance falls apart. In Scrum, events are the heartbeat of the team. Technically, these events are time-boxed containers designed to create regularity and minimize the need for meetings not defined in Scrum. In simple words, they are the rhythm of your work life. They exist to make sure the team stays in sync without us having to call a meeting every single time someone has a question. When you have a set schedule for talking about the work, you spend less time interrupting each other and more time actually doing the job. You have probably seen this at the office, where the lack of a clear schedule leads to constant random interruptions that kill everyone's focus. A good Scrum Master uses these events to protect the team's concentration. So, now that we have mastered the realization that these events are the pulse of our project's rhythm, you might be wondering how we actually set the stage for a new cycle of work. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the sprint planning event. Think about a construction crew starting work on a luxury villa in the hills of Bangalore. They don't just show up on Monday and start digging random holes. They sit down and look at the blueprints. They ask, what are we building this week? What are the biggest risks? Who is handling the plumbing and who is handling the electrical? This is sprint planning. By definition, it is a collaborative event where the team selects the work to be performed in the coming sprint and defines how that work will be achieved. Simply put, it is your huddle. It is the moment where the team says, for the next 2 weeks, this is our commitment. If you have ever felt like your team is aimless, where everyone is working on different things without a common direction, it is usually because sprint planning was weak or skipped. The goal isn't to plan every minute of the 2 weeks. It is to get clear on the why and the what so everyone can start with confidence. So now that we've mastered how to set our goals during the planning phase, you might be wondering how we maintain that focus when the work actually begins. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the daily scrum. Imagine the captain of a ship navigating the busy waters of the Mumbai harbor. Every morning, the captain checks in with the crew for 5 minutes to see if the engine is running, if the fuel levels are okay, and if there are any storms on the radar. They don't have a long, boring meeting. They just align. This is the daily scrum. Technically, it is a 15-minute event for the developers to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary. In simple words, it is a synchronization point. You have probably seen this at the office where someone spends 45 minutes giving a detailed report of their entire day and everyone else just zones out. That isn't a daily scrum. That is a status meeting and it's a waste of time. The daily scrum is about, are we still on track to meet our goal or is there a rock in our path? It is about keeping the boat moving forward, not about telling the manager what you did for lunch. So now that we have mastered the art of staying aligned every morning, you might be wondering what we do when we need to show the world what we have actually built. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the sprint review. Picture a tech startup in Chennai preparing to launch a new app feature for its users. They invite the stakeholders, the people who are paying for the app, to a demo. They don't just send a PDF report, they actually show the app working on a phone. The stakeholders click the buttons, ask questions, and give feedback right then and there. This is the sprint review. By definition, it is a session held at the end of the sprint to inspect the outcome and determine future adaptations. In simple terms, it is your feedback loop. If you go for weeks building something without showing it to the people who need it, you are running a huge risk of building something they don't actually want. The review isn't a stage show, it's a conversation. You show the work, you take the feedback, and you use that information to make the next sprint even better. It turns the us versus them dynamic into a let's build this together partnership. So now that we have mastered the value of showing our work and getting real world feedback, you might be wondering how we improve as a team, not just as a product. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the sprint retrospective. Think about a professional sports team in Delhi that just lost a tough match. They don't just move on to the next game and hope for the best. They sit in the locker room, look at the game tapes, and ask, what did we do well? Where did our communication break down? How can we be faster next time? This is the sprint retrospective. Technically, it is an event for the team to inspect how the last sprint went with regard to individuals, interactions, and tools. Simply put, it is your team improvement meeting. You have probably seen this at the office where teams ignore the problems that keep happening, like a broken coffee machine or a confusing email system, and they just suffer in silence. The retrospective is the place to speak up. It is the only meeting dedicated purely to making the team's life easier and their work more efficient. It is the heartbeat of continuous improvement. So now that we've mastered how to look in the mirror and improve our own internal processes, you might be wondering how we balance these events when our projects are massive and complex. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the concept of keeping the flow of these events disciplined. Finally, consider the conductor of a grand orchestra at the Chennai Music Academy. The conductor doesn't decide to skip the tuning of the instruments just because they are in a hurry. They know that without the tuning, the music won't be beautiful. Similarly, the events of Scrum are not optional extras. They are the discipline that makes the agility possible. If you skip the retrospective, you stop learning. If you skip the planning, you stop having a goal. If you skip the review, you stop delivering value. The discipline part of our name means we take these events seriously because we understand what they provide. We don't do them because a book told us to. We do them because they keep our ship on course, our team aligned, and our customers happy. We have covered the planning, the daily sync, the review, and the retrospective, and now you have the blueprint to turn any group of people into a high-performing team. These events are the tools that will carry you through any project, and more importantly, they are the framework that helps you build a healthier, more productive way of working every single day.